my channel. Welcome back to another video. I'm Jessie and you're watching. I am here at 7-Eleven in the morning to give y'all some Sapphic book recommendations. Ooh, that's good. I put a mountain of creamer in my coffee. It's exactly how I like it. I don't understand folk who drink their coffee black. That is some superhero-ish. If you take your coffee black, please comment down below and tell me why. I genuinely want to know. Because when I taste black coffee, it is just pure bitterness. So does it taste that way for y'all? And you simply enjoy the bitterness, or do you taste something different entirely? Because people will be like, yeah, I get like nutty flavors and etc. I don't get any of that. I get suffering. That's what I get. How are we already off topic and I'm less than a minute into this video? You're doing great, Jessie. So this is going to be a joint video where I announce the Sapphic Readathon, which is going to be running for 24 hours, as well as give you some book recommendations. So June 2nd, we are going to have a full day of Sapphic reads. I am co-hosting this readathon with my friend Jan, as well as my friend Kevin. I am so excited to be doing this with them. Kevin and I have been binging Pose, and that TV show is pure joy. You will have seen Jan on my channel from our reading sprints and us gushing over each other on Bookstagram. Jan is one of my best friends. I'm absolutely obsessed with her. I'm excited to do this readathon with both of them. These are two people that I just really love and care about, and I'm really stoked that I get to film some content with them. The fun thing about this readathon is it is going to take place midnight to midnight in your own time zone, and there's no prompts. The only thing you have to do is just read Sapphic. I wanted to make it as simple as possible because we are all busy, right? And we all have these massive TBRs, and I didn't want y'all to have to go out and get books to do this. I just wanted you to be able to select books that you already have on your shelves. If you don't have Sapphic books or you want to go out and get some books, that's cool. You go ahead and do that, sweetie. I am so excited to see your vlogs. I'm still getting caught up on the vlogs from Queer Blackness, and I just absolutely am loving your uploads. Without further ado, let's get into my recommendations. Some of these books I'm going to be focusing on longer than others, simply because some of these books are very hyped on Bookstagram. We're on YouTube, Jessie.
Doing great.
But sometimes with hyped books, we forget what representation is in them, or we simply don't know about queer representation in them. So that is why I'm going to be highlighting these books, just to remind you, to refresh what is happening. Refresh your memory. Ew. I hope I never use the term reflesh ever again. The imagery, it's giving me awful. The first book on this list is You Should See Me in a Crown, a debut novel that took the book community by storm. I absolutely loved this book. I read it for Queer Blackathon. Coverage for it in my vlog, which will be linked down below. This book was phenomenal. I just absolutely love this cover, this grinning, gap-toothed, big-haired, beautiful individual. Although this book club sticker
we could have done without.
Why? You Should See Me in a Crown covers the story of Liz, who attends high school and simply wants to be left alone. She is a queer girl and proud of it, but her life becomes deeply stressful when she only gets a partial scholarship to her dream college. Desperate to come up with the money, she decides to enter the town's prom competition because this town takes prom real seriously, and the queen of prom, as well as the king, I believe, gets $10,000, which is exactly the amount of money that she needs. And she falls in love with her competition. This book was everything. It talked about some really important issues that affect the lives of Black girls. It was funny and fast-paced, turns that I didn't see coming. I loved the conversation. I loved the friendships and the dialogue. This is definitely a great Sapphic book. Also, Mac, her love interest, phenomenal. She gave me Stargirl vibes, and I love Stargirl. This book actually made me want to reread Stargirl, and I don't care what anybody says, Stargirl was queer. The next two books are science fiction titles. The first is The Future of Another Timeline by non-binary author Anna Louise Newitz. This book was amazing. We read it for NB Book Club. I want to read their other book, Autonomous, for NB Book Club. The way that this author writes science fiction is phenomenal. This is a time travel story in which we oscillate between the 90s and the present with a group of queer individuals, some of whom are non-binary and sapphic, and some of whom are cisgender and sapphic, and they are trying to create better feminist futures. So they're going in the past and changing things. The time travel element is pretty intense in this book, so if you really love your science fiction, yes. And there is a really good bit of a mystery. The characters are so well done. This is an underhyped book that people are just sleeping on. I need to cover this book in one of my books that BookTube is sleeping on videos because it is just lovely. A big theme of this book is the erasure of women in history. That is a topic that I find very interesting, especially queer women. I just read a book, fictional book, that talked about that, and it was so good. That book is also going to be on this list, so stay tuned. Then we have a BookTube beloved, which is Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is just the queerest, beautiful, ethnically diverse cast, ethnically and species diverse cast. Oh, ever. It is so good. In The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, we have a ragtag crew, one of my favorite tropes, who are traveling to a small and hostile planet, and this book chronicles their journey, their trials and tribulations along the way. And the character work is spectacular, as well as just so unique. I loved Chef. Of course, Sissix was my favorite, and there is a sapphic interspecial relationship. It's not as weird as it sounds, I promise. It's so freaking good. You have to read this if you haven't already. The second book was on my TBR for June, and spoiler alert, I didn't read it. Now we are going to switch gears to a classic. The classic that I'm going to be recommending is The Color Purple. This is told in letters, which means it's going to be a fast read. It is also just one of the most beautiful works that have ever been written. It won a Pulitzer Prize. There's a fabulous movie adaptation as well that you can totally watch in your vlogs. And if you're not vlogging, you can just watch the movie or not watch it. I'm not telling you what to do. This book chronicles two women who were separated. Okay, why is my camera? There we go. Sorry that the other books were a little blurry. This book chronicles the lives of two women who were separated as girls but have loved each other across space and time, and they are basically writing each other love letters, and you get to follow both of them throughout their lives. It is beautiful. Again, we're talking about queer women in history, queer Black women, and we simply love to see it. The Vanished Birds is another book that BookTube is constantly sleeping on, and it is one of the best science fiction books I've ever read. I would classify this as a literary science fiction. It is from a queer Latinx male author, and the way that he writes relationships, both platonic and romantic, is just amazing. It is so unique and special, and I could not believe that this was the author's debut. So this is a really good book for people who are intimidated by science fiction. This is a book that centers around time travel, but the time travel is super easy to grasp. At least it was easy for me to grasp. Of course, we all get concepts at different rates, so I'm gonna correct myself there. Described as a powerful suspense story, in The Vanished Birds, we are following Captain Nia, who is this tall, statuesque, dark-skinned, beautiful captain who cares deeply about her crew and her cargo. And she is tasked with carrying this boy who dropped out of the sky from his current location to a distant corporation. This boy has special powers, and no one is allowed to know what they are. And this book is about her crew having to deal with this very powerful boy on their ship and the animosities and negative attitudes that form between them over not knowing who and what they're carrying. I'm telling you, it is one of the best books in the world. This is one of my favorite books in the year that I read it. I think this was 2019, I want to say. No, it was 2020. It was one of my favorite books. It was so phenomenal. Switching gears again to some literature, I have Patsy, which is by a queer female author. If you've spent any amount of time on my channel, you've seen me talk about Patsy. This is one of my favorite books. It is a polarizing read because we're talking about a very morally gray main character. She is going to challenge your empathy. She is going to challenge your understanding of mental illness as it intersects with Black female lives. It is just phenomenal. So Patsy is set oscillating between the Caribbean and New York City, and it is about a Caribbean woman who immigrates to New York City. She leaves her family behind in order to follow her best friend who moved from the Caribbean to New York. It is about the American dream. It is about colorism and immigration and the oppression of queers in various spaces. And I loved that this focused on the sapphic relationships of Black queers who are older in life, because all queer individuals are valid no matter what your age. And I thought it was really beautiful to see representation of two older adults falling in love. The writing is nothing short of exquisite. It is so freaking good. So if you want to challenge yourself and you don't usually read literature, I highly recommend this book. It was beautiful. Next up, we have some short fiction, which is going to be really good to read in a 24-hour period. This is Sarah Land. This is by a queer Jewish author, which we absolutely love to see. And it is a fabulous collection of short stories about a bunch of Jewish girls and non-binary individuals who are all named Sarah. And it was phenomenal. Some of the stories are magical realism. Some of them are biblical. A lot of them are modern and weird and center around topics like sex work and internalized homophobia and going to college for the first time and not knowing what you want to do with your life. It was a phenomenal read, a 5 out of 5 star read. I would not be surprised if it was on my favorites of 2021 list, although I have read incredible books already and it is almost July. So we shall see. And now we're going to get into some queer sapphic vampiric Black fiction. This is a classic novel called the Gilda Stories, and don't be concerned though about the writing not holding up, because it absolutely holds up. Jewel Gomez, I wish that she would come out with more books, because this writing, the storytelling, the creativity, the world building, I've never read vampires like this. These are the coolest vampires that I have ever read. They challenge what the notions of what a vampire can be. And I'm not going to say too much. I'm not going to say anything about the vampire representation other than that, because it's just best if you explore it for yourself. This novel begins in 1850 Louisiana, and we are following a woman named Gilda, who is a vampire and decides to take this girl who has recently escaped slavery under her wing and transform her into a vampire. And then we get to follow the girl and the relationships that she builds along the way. It is great. Oh my God, this book was blurbed by Sarah Waters, who wrote Tipping the Velvet, and Tipping the Velvet is the book I referenced earlier that I'm going to be talking about later. Sarah Waters, any book that she stands, I automatically stand now, because her writing was that good. Now let us move on to The Space Between Worlds, one of my favorite books of last year. Not me talking about my favorites list as if I have released my favorites video. Wait, did I? No, I didn't. The Space Between Worlds is about a girl named Kara who has the ability to travel to different alternate universes and explore her lives there. She does this for work. In this book, she is trying to discover who is killing off her alternate selves, and she falls in love with her boss, who is an Asian woman named Dell, and they have this will they, won't they relationship. This is some of my favorite character work that I've ever read. Kara is one of my favorite characters of all time, and this was a fabulous debut novel. I literally had no criticisms for it, and this is another BookTube beloved book. The world building was spectacular, and this is a standalone novel, I believe. But I want more. I want a series. This book deserves a series, and I already can't wait for the author's next book, because if this is your debut and you're only going to get better and ideally go up from there, I cannot imagine what you're going to create next. Already this premise I found was very unique, even though alternate reality sci-fi books are not unique in and of themselves, but the way that this was executed and pulled off absolutely was. The romance I very much enjoyed. Will they, won't they romances speak to me, because I'm not a big romance person. I like the suspense and the tension and the things leading up to the romance. I like the building of the romance, and that's a big reason why I like Will They, Won't They, because they're just slower and They create more suspense, and that then makes me believe in the romance all the more. We also have Sawkilled Girls, one of my favorite books of all time. This is a YA horror where we get to follow 3 girls who are all queer. Yay! This book is set on the creepy little island of Sawkilled Rock, where there is a monster that drags girls into the woods and disappears them. And in one of them, Zoe, who is Black and asexual, has decided that she has had enough. Zoe is new to town and she's not having it. She's like, no,
we're not doing this.
It is about the friendships that she forms with 2 other girls. And it is so freaking cool. It is dark, spooky, and creepy, but so atmospheric. And I think if you are a fast reader, or if you get sucked into this book and you are able to consume it quickly, that this is a book that you can realistically read in 24 hours. I actually want to reread this book and annotate it. This was actually the first book that I ever buddy read. I read it with Raviv and Jess of Jess Reads, of Jess Nevertheless, years ago, the first year that I joined BookTube. This book will always be special to my heart because of that, but it is really, really good. And I personally vibed with the ace rep so hard as a Black ace person. I really want to cosplay as Zoe at some point, because she's Black and she's got these, like, she's got orange ringlets and I think they might be streaks. And then she carries a freaking bat around. She's a bat ass bitch. Get it? Bat. Like bat. Please don't unsubscribe. I mean, if you do, I'll understand. The next book I want to talk about is another one of my favorite books of all time. Not all of my favorite books of all time being Sapphic. Okay. This is The Stars and the Blackness Between Them, another debut by a Caribbean Black author. So good. She's local to Minneapolis. And I always tell this story, but I'm going to keep telling it because it's so wild. I used to dance with the author of this book. She is so cool. She's also, I don't know if she describes herself as an activist, but she definitely has done social justice work in the past, which it has also helped our paths intersect. I didn't know that she was writing a book. We lost touch, mainly because I don't use Facebook any longer. I stopped using it years ago. The publisher Penguin Teen sent me this book and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I know her. And so I went to a reading and she was there performing the book with her beautiful spoken word cadence. And I still to this day am so proud of her and so flabbergasted that she just dropped a book and it was fire. This book is about 2 Caribbean Black girls, one who lives on Port of Spain, Trinidad, and the other who lives in Minneapolis. And the Trinidadian girl is found kissing a girl from her church. And her father is like, no, we're not doing this. And he sends her to Minneapolis, where she then falls in love with another girl. It is a beautiful story about chronic debilitating illness. It is a story about the prison system and incarceration. And it couldn't be more beautiful. It just couldn't be more beautiful. 2 more books left. We have BookTube Classic, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is about a Cuban starlet who decides to pass herself off as white so that she can have a shot in old Hollywood, and she falls in love with a fellow actress. They have to be secret about their romance, and it's about Evelyn Hugo's lives.
Lives? What? She's only had one.
But it's about her history because she's famously known for having had 7 husbands. And so Evelyn Hugo throughout this book is telling her story to a journalist, how she married these men and why they ended up divorcing, while also talking about the relationship that she had with this woman. It is a suspenseful mystery on top of being a beautiful piece of historical fiction, and I highly recommend it. Now, the final book, my very last recommendation for Sapphic Reads, is a new favorite. I just read it. I just filmed a reading vlog for it, and it is going to be up in June, likely around the 15th. It is so good, y'all. And it is a book that I haven't heard anybody on BookTube talk about. That is none other than Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. I was able to read this in a day because it was that good. So this is a book that gives me Water for Elephants vibes as well as The Prestige vibes, but make it sapphic. It is so freaking magical and phenomenal. And we're following a girl living in Victorian England who goes to a music hall and sees a male impersonator performer and falls in love with her, and she ends up becoming her professional dresser and they move to London, and it's about their lives as closeted queer performers. And we get to look at the queer history of concert hall, music hall performances. And it is just everything. The writing, the suspense. It's also very naughty. Very naughty. When I found out what tipping the velvet meant. And if you like historical fiction, oh my gosh, let me tell you, if you enjoy Taylor Jenkins Reid books, I think you would like this. Man, it's just so freaking good. So that is going to do it for this video. Don't forget July 2nd, save the date. If you want more content from me, follow me on my Instagram, which is bowtiesandbooks. But all of my social media links will be in the description box below. And if you want to show me that you made it this far in the video, comment down below with the kissy lips emoji, because this is all about sapphic relationships. Stay safe, wear a mask, and I hope to see you in my next video.